Welcome everyone to the exciting session on decoding the Indian budget 2023 and finding investment opportunities from it. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Indian budget is an yearly event that outlines the government's plan for the nation's financial spending and revenue collection for the coming year. And as citizens and taxpayers, it is crucial that we understand the implications of this budget on our daily lives. But let's face it, the budget document and the speech is very complicated and it confuses a lot of Indians who are already financially savvy. So that is where I come in. My name is Kunwar and I'm the founder at Unfinance. हम लोग financial videos बनाते हैं and we simplify finance for a lot of Indians. So today we will be talking to one of the expert guests and we will be discussing the budget and decoding investment opportunities from it. So let's first understand कि budget होता क्या है. Let's first understand कि revenue और capital receipts क्या होते हैं. मतलब इस साल डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस से, लोन्स और ग्रांट से या फिर किसी और फाइनेंशियल सोर्सेस से हाउ मच द इंडियन और द गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेक्टिंग टू अर्न. एंड द सेकंड इज एक्सपेंडिचर रिसीट्स, जिसमें ये मेंशन होता है कि गवर्नमेंट कितना पैसा कहां स्पेंड करने वाली है और इससे हमें पता चलता है कि हाउ द नेशन इज मूविंग फॉरवर्ड. पर हमारे लिए बजट क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है? यार मैं टैक्स पे करता हूं, जीएसटी देता हूं, फिर भी सड़कें क्यों नहीं बनती, बिजली क्यों इतनी महंगी है? इसका मेन रीजन है जो हमारा रेवेन्यू है और जो हमारा एक्सपेंडिचर है उसमें डिफरेंस है. हमारा एक्सपेंडिचर ज्यादा है एंड उसके लिए हमें लोन लेना पड़ता है, राइट. एंड मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस एंड डिफेंस में सबसे ज्यादा खर्चा होता है एंड काफी ज्यादा पैसा लोन्स और इंटरेस्ट देने पर जाता है. बट the best thing about this budget from a long term perspective is that हमारा capital allocation towards infra like railways and roadways is higher, जिसके benefits हम long term तक देखेंगे. Now jumping on to the very exciting part, agri-tech, AI, healthcare, EV, tourism sector में गवर्नमेंट ने बहुत सारा अपना इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ाया है जिससे उन्होंने काफी इंटरेस्ट भी दिखाया है. बट टू डिकोड की कौन सी इंटरेस्टिंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज हो सकती है, आई वुड लाइक टू कॉल अपॉन आवर वेरी स्पेशल गेस्ट जिनका नाम है मिस्टर जिनेश गोपानी, who is the head of equities at Axis Mutual Fund. He has over a decade and half experience in managing billions of dollars and currently he manages $18 billion asset under management, which has grown at a CAGR of 45% since 2009. He's a true believer of fundamental based research oriented approach towards investing, and the fund he manages majorly invests in companies with strong and sustainable businesses. I'm very excited to have you here, sir. Welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Kunwar. Good morning to everyone.
So, sir, आपके बारे में सुना तो बहुत है and finally आपके साथ बात करने का मौका मिल रहा है. So, it is a privilege for me. I will love to know a lot about you. But first, let's understand कि आपके क्या thoughts हैं इस budget के बारे में and as per you, which industries or sectors are going to benefit from this budget?
Sure. I think अगर आप डिटेल में देखिए, the most positive जो हमको बजट में लगा was no major negatives, no populist measures which came because अगर आपको पता है 2024 में हमारा national election है. So during national election, general tendency is that you get into a populist budget and you give some freebies or higher subsidies. I think the most important part of this budget is not getting into that road and continuing our prudent and fiscal measure to do growth led by capex or infrastructure. So I think in that sense, it's a very fine balancing act, a sound budget, I would say, what the finance minister has implemented or given out. I think the positives, I would say, is more about thrust on job creation, led by infrastructure growth. I think clearly 33% growth, 10 lakh crore expenditure, what they want to do in infrastructure. I think it's a big number in that sense. So it is close to 3.3% of GDP. And this is keeping in mind that you have a fiscal constraint of fiscal deficit and your borrowings could have gone up. But I think fiscal prudence को ध्यान में रखते हुए spending more on infrastructure, which has a multiplier effect, I think it is a
Hmm.
it is a it is a big show of strength in terms of long-term GDP growth
Correct.
outlook. I think other aspects are more about giving individuals at the lower strata of the society
Hmm.
tax benefits. I think that is also a pretty welcome move, like increasing your tax break from 5 lakh to 7
Hmm.
lakh. I think it's a good move. A large part of our population is around that salary levels, and hence it gives them breather either in terms of saving or in terms of spending. So
Correct.
consumption can also have some more boost. And as you rightly said, the focus on green initiatives, the focus on digital penetration. I think all these are like a continuity of the reforms what this government has taken into. I think from a market perspective, and I'm sure काफी जन ने देखा होगा insurance companies को कैसे धोया. I think the only negative I can say is which has come is on the insurance side जहाँ जो tax breaks मिल
Hmm.
रहे थे ultra HNIs को, that they have now taken it away. One more, I would say not so big negative, but some negative is the market-led debentures, which was being
Hmm.
issued by many of the wealth firms
Hmm.
and NBFCs were raising capital through that by
Hmm.
issuing MLDs, what we call to HNIs. I think that has also been taken away in terms of tax benefit. So I think these are few negatives on the insurance side and on this market-led debentures, which has impacted in some sense the ultra HNIs who used to benefit of this, basically taking away the tax arbitrage, I would say. So I think the focus of this government is to give something to everyone. It's a
Hmm.
fine balancing act. Fiscal prudence, I would say, path
Hmm.
towards bringing down fiscal deficit to 4.8 levels in next 2 to 3 years. I think it's a welcome move. Also, from a debt market, I'm an equity guy, but from the debt market point of view, not raising your borrowing targets
Hmm.
and well within the control expected by some of the economies, I think is also a very welcome move. So I think I would say it's a pragmatic budget. Focus is towards long-term growth, and
Correct.
idea is to have a sustainable real GDP of 6.5% for a decade or so. Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned about the tax breaks and that up to 7 lakhs, a lot of people don't have to pay any tax. So on that, do you think कि उससे लोगों की investing habit change होगी because now they don't, people who are earning up to 7-8 lakhs उनको ATC में invest करना compulsory नहीं होगा. So will that open up sort of them investing in sort of seeking for higher returns than they were previously mandated to do, या फिर उसका उल्टा इफेक्ट होगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कम होंगे and they will focus more on spending?
I think it depends on person to person. If he doesn't have higher EMI pressure,
Hmm.
then I think he might end up doing both. I would say some savings and some spending. I would say. See, at the end of the day, the desire of an individual is growing, right? So some
Hmm.
tax benefit always leads to some consumption and some saving. So I would say 50-50 हो सकता है कि let's say if I'm saving, let's say 40-50,000
Hmm.
or something like that, so 50% I will invest and look for higher returns in
Hmm.
any shape and form, and 50% I might end up spending more because I'm getting that breather. Obviously, it depends on person to person how leverage he is. So, but I would say from a structural point of view, moving into that direction itself is a good sign, I would say.
But इसमें interestingly, like I think the focus of the government is कि probably in the next coming few years they will try to move a lot of people in the new tax regime, right? Even in the higher income
Correct,
strata. तो क्या उसका
correct,
effect
correct.
sort of higher participation in mutual funds आएगा apart from non-tax saver funds, या फिर आप क्या उस पे कैसे आप expect कर रहे हो? Because right now, like a lot of people invest 30-40 or 50% in let's say ELSS जो ATC में आता है, तो क्या वो change shift आप expect कर रहे हो या नहीं?
I think whatever data we have and whatever experience we have, because we have one of the largest tax
Hmm.
saving fund, Access Long
Hmm.
Term Equity Fund. I
Correct.
think gradually over last 5-7 years, we have seen investors not only coming for tax benefit. I
Hmm.
think we have enough lump sum bigger amounts, because see,
Hmm.
ATC gives you that 1,50,000 ka tax benefit. But now
Correct.
we have the investors coming with a higher ticket size and
Hmm.
the intent, and also from our side, the education has been that you look for long term capital appreciations
Hmm.
without taking into account even those tax benefits. The tax benefit is like a one level of push to
Hmm.
nudge people to participate in mutual fund in this category. But the bigger idea is to bring people into a sustainable, disciplined, long-term investing, where 3 year lock-in period always helps you
Hmm.
generate higher returns because you don't have to see your investments on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
So I think obviously there will be 15-20% of population which will come only for tax benefit, but I think
Hmm.
we have seen people now graduating better. Investor education has gone up, and people are
Hmm.
not looking at only tax benefit. I think they are genuinely looking at more returns than your inflation. So I think anything to beat your inflation, equity is the best place to be in.
Correct. And sorry, as you rightly mentioned, ki like when someone invests in equity mutual funds, they usually have an investor horizon more than 3 years, minimum 3 to 5 years का रखते हैं, and that is what your investor education and approach has been. तो उस case में
Yeah.
macroeconomic trends become very important, and looking at just this budget is not the right approach. पुराने budgets and probably आगे के आने वाले, that is very important. But as a common man, let's see, even like me, it gets very confusing to keep track ki last 1-2 saal mein what the government has done and what is their plan for the next 2-3 years.
Correct.
So I would love to understand your opinion on that, because it will help me and a lot of the people watching this as well.
Sure. So that is what I said in my opening. When the continuity of the reforms from a longer term trajectory is more important rather than shifting your focus, especially from the budget point of view, from populist to reformist. So
Hmm.
I think, as I said in my opening comment, that no major negative around subsidies, no major negative around freebies,
Hmm.
which leads to populism more than the reformism. I
Hmm.
think that is what this path has been taken by this government over last 6, 7, 8 years, and
Correct.
it is continuing. In fact, if you really see, the infrastructure budget has continuously gone up. So
Hmm.
as like, it was around 1.5% of GDP 7, 8 years back, it has
Hmm.
gradually moved up to now 3% of GDP. So while keeping the fiscal constraints in mind, so I think the focus is toward long term, because please understand, one project leads to lot of job creation. It has its own multiplier effect.
Hmm.
You have steel sector, cement sector, the capital goods sector, all participating in that growth journey, which has its own
Hmm.
virtuous cycle of growth. It's like a 7x or 8x kind of multiplier, what we say.
Hmm.
So I think the most important part, what we like, is not drifting away from your goal of long term GDP growth and
Hmm.
getting into populism. So I think this is where we like that continuity is very important. As we like in our companies also, we like continuity of strategy. I think that is
Hmm.
what we look from the budget, and I think government is following that path.
Interesting. And like you just mentioned that there are so many sectors and industries, and let's say the steel industry, the NBFC industry, semiconductor industry. Recently, every industry has its expansion cycles. कभी कोई down रहता है, कभी कोई up रहता है. For example, like most banks or NBFCs were facing a hard time during COVID, but now their balance, most banks की balance sheets has been strengthening. So a lot of people get confused and they sort of realize that opportunity very late कि यार this industry is now has started to boom, and then they realize it once it's already in the market. तो उसमें what is your thought कि how do people look at different industries and different cycles they sort of go through in during sort of a period of, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so Kumar, if you really see, there are economic cycles, there are business cycles, and there are market cycles. So
Hmm.
different cycles keep on coming depending on the event, depending on how the GDP growth momentum of the global world is, and what
Hmm.
it has its own implication on the
Hmm.
on a particular country. So, for example, you had a great boom in 2000 of IT cycle, and then suddenly everything fell off the cliff, and then you had again the rise of that IT cycle after global financial meltdown. Similarly, in India, if you see, there are many sectors which go through its own GDP led business cycles. So you have commodities, you have cement sector, you have sugar
Hmm.
sector, you have metal sector, you have NBFC, as you rightly said, has
Hmm.
its own GDP led business cycle. So the best thing is to identify those cycles, and if you are able to catch some trends early in the stage, then I think you can end up making a lot of money in the
Hmm.
initial phase of that cycle. Let me just give you an example. Before pre-COVID, real estate was not doing that great. In
Hmm.
fact, it was down the dumps in before pre-COVID 4 5 years. I think suddenly after COVID means the demand for housing just went through the roof, and inventories were not available, and everything which was available got sold out. Suddenly, the
Correct.
real estate cycle picked up in a big way. Similarly, like chemical cycle, if you really see the problem in China, the problem in Europe led to people talking about we becoming one of the destination for chemicals, and suddenly
Hmm.
there was a huge leg of boom understanding that what will happen in terms of business cycles
Hmm.
related to chemical. So what happens if you are able to pick those cycles in the early stage? I think you are able to make a disproportionate return, and as your cycle comes to on a maturity, you can
Hmm.
exit out of it, or maybe continue with some of the investments if you have. So
Hmm.
in that sense, I would like to give you one. I have my product guy, and we have new product which is coming.
Hmm.
So if you want, we can take up. We have Shane here
Great.
to give you a better idea about our new fund, which is like a business cycle fund. So I
Sure.
would urge you to talk to him and get color of new fund. Yeah.
Sure. So, Shane Vaz is the product specialist and assistant vice. So, like, he's the AVP at Access Mutual Fund. So, Shane, can we have you on? Yeah, great. So, Shane will be talking about the business cycle fund and will give you like a quick overview of that.
Yeah. Hi, Kunwar, and hi, Jinesh. Good morning. Thank you for having me on. Good morning to everybody on who's joined us, and it's great to see very strong participation on a Saturday morning. So, thank you so much for that. And in line with what Jinesh said about trying to catch the right cycle, I think Axis has been at the forefront of trying to identify opportunities over the last 13 years. And with that, we are bringing out our new fund called the Axis Business Cycles Fund, which is already open as an NFO. So if you were to look, and I hope you can see my screen. I'm actually going to share a few tidbits about what this fund is about. Uh, so, uh, so if like Janesh mentioned, a business cycle, just like for those of you who run a business or run a profession, who are yourself included, you have an up cycle, you have a down cycle. आपका business अच्छा चलता है कभी कभी या there are chances that because जो market में हो रहा है, because of that you see a slowdown. And इन साइकिल को टाइम करने के लिए आपको फंडामेंटल व्यू देखना पड़ता है, आपको इकोनॉमिक के जो फैक्टर्स है, जैसे जीडीपी ग्रोथ या जैसे कंज्यूमर सेंटिमेंट, ये सब देख के आपको इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए. Jinesh and team have a track record of trying to identify many of these cycles, and they have been very successful in creating wealth because of this. तो इंडिया का अगर आप साइकिल देखोगे, जो लास्ट 10 साल में, यू एक्चुअली सीन एवरी बिट ऑफ दिस साइकिल. तो आपको एक एक्सपेंशन साइकिल दिखा है, आपको एक स्लो डाउन साइकिल दिखा है, आपको एक रिसेशनरी फियर का जो कोविड के टाइम पे जो रिसेशनरी फियर का वो साइकिल दिखा है. सो इफेक्टिवली इफ यू आर एबल टू मैनेज दीज साइकिल्स through this, you've actually made a lot of money from an equity market standpoint. And Axis ka jo business cycle fund hai, it tries to do exactly this. It tries to play stocks and sectors specifically that are at the cusp of a very big upcycle or a growth cycle, which also not only creates value for the business, the employees, but also for shareholders. इसमें इसमें हम बहुत ही सिंपल तरीके से एक टॉप डाउन और बॉटम अप अप्रोच को हार्मोनाइज करके एक पोर्टफोलियो बनाते हैं। टिपिकली जो पोर्टफोलियोज होती है आर वेरी वेरी ग्रैन्युलर इन नेचर एंड बहुत ही फ्लेक्सिबल तरीके से पोर्टफोलियो एक साइकिल से दूसरे साइकिल में शिफ्ट कर देता है आपका पैसा। अप साइकिल में आप देखोगे टिपिकली मिड एंड स्मॉल कैप कंपनीज अच्छे करते हैं, डाउन साइकिल में लार्ज कैप कंपनीज बहुत सपोर्ट देती है। तो इसके कारण वी आर टिपिकली गोइंग टू रन नो मार्केट कैप बायस एंड एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आपको क्वालिटी पेज सिग्निफिकेंट डिविडेंड्स टू अवॉइड दोज मिस्टेक्स। सो इफेक्टिवली आपको जो एक प्रोडक्ट पैकेज करके हम लोग दे रहे हैं आज इज कीपिंग इन माइंड दैट इंडिया इज टुडे अ वेरी वेरी डायनामिक मार्केट. There are lots of dynamic opportunities as well, and you've got a star panel of fund managers who are going to try and navigate this for you over a 3, 5, 10 year cycle. So this is what the business cycle fund is. It is open. The NFO is already open, and it closes on the 16th of February. Who are over?
Thank you so much, Jinesh, for giving a quick overview of the fund. And can we also have Jinesh sir back? Great. Jinesh sir, welcome back. And so I have one personal question, Jinesh sir, from my side. So I did some research on you and I found out कि आप 70-30-20 रूल से अपने assets allocate करते हो, right? Now, personally, I feel a lot of financial rules become outdated and it's very personalized to their approach. And I would love to understand that from you. I know a lot of the audience watching would love to understand कि experts like you who have been in the market for more than 10-15 years, how are they seeing the return? How are they managing their money?
See, I think I would say it depends on the risk appetite of a particular individual and also the age profile. Let's say if you are a 30-35 year bracket, earning well, growing in life, risk appetite is higher, hunger is higher. I think I would suggest your 90% of your money should be in equity, because see, even if you see last 15 years, even if you take only Nifty returns, I think the beauty has been Nifty also has generated 9% to 10% kind of CAGR, and that is in a way tax-free kind of returns if you are holding it for a longer periods of time. So if Nifty, the index can give you those 9-10% CAGRs, you will have some of the managers, some of the stocks beating much more than that and delivering you higher returns. So given the situation what we have, Kunwar, we don't have social security. We are not dependent on the government in terms of getting benefits, bigger benefits at the end of our retirement. I think initial investments in equity will always pay off in terms of beating your inflation and beating your cost of capital handsomely. So I think it depends on the risk appetite, Kumar. 30-35 years, I would advise 90%. 45-50, obviously risk are higher. आपने housing loan लिए, कुछ ना कुछ loan होता ही है. So obviously then it becomes 70-30, and then as you graduate beyond 50-55 years, I think obviously it has to come down to 40-60, 40 equity and 60 rest of it. So I think I would say you take any 3 to 5 year cycle of the market. Market has made money for you. Markets climb all wall of worries, be it COVID as well. So I think it's a very dynamic world. You will end up getting so many companies who are delivering long-term wealth for the investor. And I think from that point of view, the age plays a very important role in terms of your risk appetite. And I would suggest to look through your age and your hunger and passion and go for the investments as per your need.
So when you were young, were you investing 90% in equities then? Like 10-15 years back?
Absolutely.
Nice. Because
हमारा तो जॉब भी इक्विटी का है और हमारा इन्वेस्टमेंट भी इक्विटी में है.
Nice. Interesting. So I have some questions from the audience as well. So I'll ask
Yeah.
a few questions and any of you can take it जो आपको ठीक लगता है. So
Sure.
Jinesh sir, जैसे आपने बोला कि insurance sector will be impacted और immediate reaction तो आया था कि stocks गिर गए थे. So उस पे थोड़ा आप elaborate करोगे कि health insurance, how will that be impacted due to the budget, because we've seen the initial reaction, but मुझे भी पर्सनली समझना था कि लॉन्ग टर्म में इसका क्या इफेक्ट होगा जो गवर्नमेंट चेंजेस ला रही है.
See, I think one set is the initial impact because of that 5 lakh and above will get taxed. So if a person is paying a higher premium than 5 lakh for those non-par products, not ULIP, but the non-ULIP products, non-par products, what we get, like a guaranteed return kind of product, which yields, let's say, 6.5%, where some companies had aggressively sold over last 2-3 year period. I think that is where if you end up investing more than 5 lakh, I think you will not get the benefit of taxation on the entire amount, only till 5 lakh, and over and above that, you will be subject to normal taxation regime. So I think that is an impact. You see some of the reports, some of the companies who have come out on TV, and I think there is some impact to the companies. Different companies will have different impact depending on what is the investor profile they have in that product, whether it is less than 5 lakh or higher than 5 lakh. So that impact is there. And the second order impact is when you are moving to new tax regime, when you are not requiring those benefits available, with benefits, all benefits goes away, whether that will have its own impact on the overall sales of insurance. So as you were asking me about tax fund, I think similar situation there. So that leads to some multiple compression. There is some derating in the sector which is happening. Very early to say. I think already the representations have gone to the finance ministry, is what I understand, to increase that 5 lakh limit to 10 lakh limit, and also the future benefits what would be available. So I think too early to say. People will wait for some understanding. It's a very complex subject. Insurance is a very complex subject. मुझे भी difficult होता है समझना. But in nutshell, I would say there is some impact initially because of this 5 lakh thing, and then because of the moving into new tax regime, how many people really move into that, how many stop investing in insurance because of the tax benefit going away. I think that we will come to know only after 6-12 months, because the numbers will come out and companies will start reporting what has been the impact. So that leads to some multiple derating.
इंटरेस्टिंग सर. एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग एक और सवाल आया है. आई एम न्यू टू इन्वेस्टिंग, कैन आई बिगिन इन्वेस्टिंग विद दिस फंड?
You should.
एंड उसी का फॉलो क्वेश्चन है, व्हाट इज द इन्वेस्टमेंट होराइजन ऑफ दिस फंड, एंड इज दिस अ गुड फंड टू डाइवर्सिफाई?
See, from the investment point of view, from our investment point of view, our horizons of companies will be 12 to 24 months. But from your investment point of view, let's say out of 100, if you are putting 5 rupee or 6 rupee into this fund, I think you can keep it for a longer period of time, because see, it is difficult for an individual to find cycles, but it is easy. I would say relatively better for the funds, given the data analytics available, given the quant measurements available. I think it is better for the institution to look for those cycles. So I think from your point of view, I think long term up leke baith jaiye if you like the fund, if you like the portfolio over a period of time. But from our investment point of view, it will be a 12 to 24 catching of cycle, what we'll try to.
Okay. So so जो 12 to 24 months will be the catching of cycle. So as per you, are these cyclical events और जो पूरा रहता है only happening because India, let's say, is at the developing stage, and आगे जाके will this become a constant theme, or will the business cycles continue to exist forever?
See, there are certain cycles, Kunwar, which keeps on happening. They are cycles at the end of the day. As I said in my opening comment, there are economic cycle. Let's say at the lower GDP growth, what cycles will do well, and at the higher GDP growth, what cycles do well. What constituents of sectors are adding to GDP. So, for example, let's say if I may say 10, 12 years back, if you take Nifty composition, you had oil and gas as one of the largest Nifty weightages. When now, if you see, you have financial sector as the largest equity weightage. So, what happens in this business cycles and the economic cycles? You have profit pools changing its course. So last 1.5 year, 2 year, I'm sure you will have one question on our underperformance. So let me just try to.
That was the next question.
Last 1.5 year, 2 years in our existing funds, which are more consistent, long-term nature fund. Why we doing well? Because there are some of the cycles. Generally, we don't participate from a long-term investment perspective, but the profit pools for that period came to that cycle. So let's say you can call it a chemical cycle, you can call it a commodity cycle or something like that, where profit pools were very high because there was supply chain disruption, and obviously the prices of the commodities went up, and obviously companies made a lot of money out of it. However, having said that, now that cycle is, we feel that cycle is coming to an end, and there is a resurgence of growth cycle which is coming back. So again, as I said, the profit pools keeps on changing as the GDP movement happens, and that is how you will see this fund trying to take benefit out of.
Kunwar, I would like to add here, if I could.
Sure.
See, from a product perspective and from an investor perspective, see, this is a thematic fund. So, the risk profile of thematic funds is typically a little higher than that of a traditional ELSS or a core equity strategy. So, for investors who are coming in, you have to understand that it takes time. These things take time to create that alpha, to create that wealth story that investors are looking for. So you have to stay in a fund like this for at least 5 years. जो आपका पैसा effect, जो हम lock in या ऐसे बोलते हैं, right? I mean, while this is an open-ended fund, investors should basically look at this as आप 5 साल यहाँ पे पैसा छोड़ के come back after 5 years and see what it is, right? Correct. You will have a high degree of volatility because equity is a volatile asset class.
For sure.
That is very, very critical while investors take that decision of investing in equity.
And also overall the theme of the fund is such that a normal person can't identify cycles and invest as per that. So it is very important to trust the fund manager and you guys who are doing the research and are constantly on top of it, right?
Yes. So Jinesh and team basically have to have a lot of conviction, because what happens is that when you are trying to get in, you are going to be one of the handful of people who will get in early, and that is the endeavor. If you get in last, then you can't really make that alpha, right?
Yes.
So there is a high degree of conviction that Jinesh and team will have on certain sectors, on themes, on stocks, and that is what will kind of create that wealth creation story.
Also, Jinesh sir, I was reading somewhere ki there was this research that was done in the US market ki overall SIP versus lump sum में बहुत सारे केस में lump sum has performed better, right? So let's say if someone has a corpus of 5-10 lakhs right now, or probably even 2-3 lakhs, so should they sort of do a lump sum in this fund, or should they always prefer like an SIP mode for this fund?
No, see, Kumar, I will always say both are good depending on the timing, and timing is the I would say worst exercise or a futile exercise in that sense. So what I normally believe that you don't want to miss the markets. You don't know for what factors markets will go up. See, there are many events which are not in our control, right? I mean, there are some global events. You see what happened over last. You had demonetization. You had GST. You had IL&FS crisis. Then you had COVID. Then you had Ukraine, Russia. So there are so many events which are not in our control, right? So rather than trying to be smart and trying to time the market, I would always prefer that whatever money you have, you invest, you start your investing with 30, 35, 40% lump sum, and then staggered the other, so that you don't miss out the volatilities of this market cycles, and you have enough to make money in that 30-40% lump sum, and then you keep on investing judiciously for next 5-10 years. The benefit of the compounding returns will get nurtured over next 5 to 10 year period. So I think don't get into that opinionated viewpoint के बॉस मुझे मालूम है मार्केट क्या है और आज मैं 5% के लिए वेट करूंगा and something like that. I think it is always it's a futile exercise. So as a fund manager also, I always tell my fund managers not to get into this timing mode. It is better to invest judiciously. You don't know which event will make markets positive or which event will make markets negative. Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite quotes about investing is also like that timing the market se zyada better at time in the market, right? That is one of my favorite investing.
Perfectly. Well said.
Yeah. So you mentioned ki, let's say if someone thinks about allocating 30-35% in lump sum, let's say in mutual funds as a general category, and given the audience profile, like the audience I know might be coming is somewhere between 25 to 30 years. So usme se what allocation should this fund ideally have? Like a range will also work here?
In this business cycle fund?
Correct, in the business cycle fund.
I think, as I said, of 100 rupees, if you can allocate 5-6 rupees, I think that is good to go, I would say.
Okay. And a very generic question, ki Nifty has been flat for the last 1 year, right? So like a member is asking here ki when will the markets rise now? What is the outlook from you in the next 1 year?
No, see, I think to be very fair, I would say, see, you had a best run after COVID. From 7,500 Nifty, you are now around 18,000, 17,000. So obviously, अगर आप long term trajectory देख लीजिए, market has given you 9 to 10% kind of CAGR, which is like I would say 2% or 3 percentage point more than real GDP, right? If I take 6% as an average, so this is what markets will give you. So there will be 2-3 years of huge returns, and then I think there might be years of time correction, and then again you will have a second other bull run which might come into play. Going into next year, Kunwar, clearly you are entering a phase where GDP growth is going to be bit slower as compared to last year. So I'm being honest and fair to you. So you are entering a cycle which is I would say difficult cycle of the economy, not because of India not doing well. It is more to do with global issues. So if let's say US, which is the big daddy of the world, is slowing down and going into sort of a mild recession, it's a $25 trillion market, and you just imagine that slowing down. It will have its own repercussion in the rest of the world, right? Then you have China, which was, let's say, growing at 7, 8, 9% for decades, suddenly is growing at 2-3%. So that intensity of growth has also come off. You have Europe, which is again it's in a trouble situation because of various events which have occurred there. So when you have three large economies not doing that great, obviously it will have its own direct or indirect impact on India or Indian companies. So let's say exports might get impacted. So to that extent, you have to keep in mind that this year you are getting on a sort of a softer patch, especially also last year bases are now coming off. तो आपका जो रिवेंज टूरिज्म था, रिवेंज वेडिंग्स था, रिवेंज शॉपिंग था, सब कुछ अभी बेस में आ रहा है. So with that, we'll have to really see EMIs have gone up. So see, cost of living has gone up, right? Inflation is also higher, which will have its own impact. So I'm not saying it's a doom's world. I'm just saying you are getting into softer patch of growth, and hence our guess is stock specific activities will be very, very good, because companies who are able to deliver numbers even during softer patches of GDP growth will get fair share of returns and fair share of flows. But from a market point of view, at least our assumption is next 3-6 months are going to be more of a range kind of a market with high volatility.
Correct. And that's where, your approach ki you usually invest in solid and sustainable businesses who even perform good during such time is very important. And, that's why like looking at last 10 years growth where, you've seen consistent growth is extremely important. One thing that I wanted to ask was, this is like a question coming from my side only. How is this fund different from a few of other funds that you are offering? And for example, you or other AMCs as well. For example, the Flexi Cap fund, which is also a theme-based fund, right? How is this specific business cycle fund different from the other funds?
Yeah. So I think the bigger philosophy of having into good quality companies, good governed companies, no shortcuts on corporate governance, that all remains same even in this fund. But as I said, if you really see our existing portfolios like FlexiCap or Multicap or Blue Chip or Long Term Equity or Focus 25, they are more GDP compounder stories, CAGR kind of stories, which is more sustainability of earnings are much higher in the bad phases of the market, even in the good phases of the market. So it is more consistent, disciplined approach, and more towards we have focused more towards B2C kind of stories. Whereas generally, if you see, when you come to cycles, you will have more B2B kind of stories, because as I said, the sector dynamics changes and you want to participate in the sector in the early phases of the change in the dynamics of that sector. So generally, you will see more B2B stories playing around in this fund as compared to B2C stories, which we have played all throughout in last 13 and a half year of our journey. So that is the major change you will find in this portfolio. Obviously, as I said, here we take 5-year call for any stock to buy. Here, as I said, from a sectoral perspective, we will take 12 to 24 month kind of a view, because you want to catch those initial trends in the market, right? So you don't want to miss out those initial where let's say you are the first one to enter those stories, and then people realize it, and then you have that exponential returns happening because of the flow coming dramatically into those sectors. So as I said, this will be more B2B, 12 to 24 month sector view approach, whereas the other funds are more long term in nature, CAGR stories, which they continue to compound for a longest period of time.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Also, I will just add that just from a disclosure point of view, the churn in this portfolio would be slightly higher than the churn what we have in the other portfolio.
Yeah. So that's also a very important element. Kunwar, you also mentioned when you compare it with other, because we are not the first ones to launch a business cycle fund. The differentiator between Axis has always been the quality stats, right? So like Jinesh mentioned, in our core strategies, we are more bottom-up, long-term stock picking stories. Here, just in line with what the other people do, there is a top-down approach. What we also look at here is not only the absolute top, the economic element. We also play sectoral cycles. So what Jinesh mentioned about 12, 24 months, while the economy remains in one cycle, you can have different sectors that keep, adding that value over different periods of time. So let's say, for example, within the auto space, you may have maybe the four-wheelers that will do well first, then maybe the two-wheelers that may do well, so on and so forth. Of course, this is an illustration. But the trick here of how we would create alpha is to also time that element of it. So we will play two sets of cycles. We will play an economic cycle as well. We will play a sectoral cycle as well. And that is where we would be a little more dynamic in our approach to kind of investing.
Interesting. So the economic cycles, are they usually longer than the
Typically economic cycles are a little longer, but sectoral cycles are fairly shorter. So if you see, for example, every year over the last 10 years, you would not see the same sector that would consistently be outperforming you. So, for example, in 1 year you would have real estate that will do well. The second year you will have consumer discretionary that will do well. Third year you will have IT that will do well. But all this time you would actually see that India is still in an expansionary cycle. So as an investor, Our job is also to find the best set of sectors that will add value within that particular economic cycle, right? So, and that is where a shorter cycle, like a 12, 24 months, adds that additional kicker to kind of this kind of a fund.
Correct.
In fact, just to add, Kumar, is the constituents of GDP are changing pretty rapidly with innovation and digitalization. The constituents of GDP are changing pretty rapidly, and that is what we would like to play in this fund.
This is like, sir, one thing that that I also feel that let's say AI, data analytics, or even technology as a whole. When I look at, let's say, stocks or funds in India, there are very few options that we have. So in this business cycle fund, will that be like a core focus as well? So like from a technology perspective,
Yeah, let's say if from a top-down approach, if it throws a lot of opportunities, then why not?
interesting.
So
And
let's take an example that let's say you have and it's just an illustration, so please don't get me wrong. Let's say you had a very bad phase of internet cycle in last 12 months, right? You had IPOs and stocks are down like 70, 50, 60, 70%. Businesses are not down, right? Businesses have slowed down. But let's say if things improve and if the indicators, the quant indicators tell us that no, this is the time that things are turning around, then why not participate big time on that? So in the existing fund, we might have through and through those stocks, but might be just 5-10% of the portfolio. Whereas here, if opportunity is available and if we really get it right, then it can be 20-25% of the portfolio. So that is how we would like to play in this fund.
and
This is the flexibility element that I was talking about, Kunwar. So, you want that conviction and you have that ability to kind of, really add these kind of stocks very quickly.
No, I mean, for me, why this like is very promising and it makes a lot of sense is because index funds or let's say other blue chip funds, they are very standard. उसमें ज़्यादा changes नहीं आते. जो let's say I can also sort of invest in an index fund and stay quiet and have nothing to do. इसमें मतलब I always feel कि जब भी कोई expansion cycle या कोई industry के बारे में news आता है पता चलता है, that is very late. Like because I personally, or like a lot of people around me, can't identify that. So that is one thing which I really found interesting. And personally, I'm not invested in any business cycle fund as of now, and I would love to sort of have a look and consider that as well. So we, I think, have taken a lot of questions. So would like to sort of summarize this session. Jinesh sir, anything that you would want to say about, like, so just sort of end this, or Shane, you?
No.
Yeah.
So I would like to just say that mutual fund is not like equity investment is not like casino. Please don't look at daily prices or daily NAV. It will have its own impact on your personal investment style. Look at long term, and there are many funds who have delivered more than your cost of inflation, cost of living, and that is where I would love you guys to participate with keeping in mind the compounding benefits of equity investment rather than looking at day-to-day prices and trying to get swayed in the markets.
Yeah,
for sure. Shane, anything that you would want to say in the end?
Yeah. So I'm like a power bull. This is personal view in the sense that, see, if you just look at where we were, say 10 years ago, we just crossed $1 trillion economy. Today we are a $5 trillion economy. Tomorrow by 2030 we may be a $10 trillion economy, right? इतना आपको opportunity मिल रहा है equities में खेलने के लिए. I mean, why go anywhere else, right? I mean, if you are young, you have that risk-taking ability. Yes, last 2 years have been very bad. कोई बात नहीं. Equities do not give you straight line returns, and it is in periods of weakness, and those people who have that जिगर जो बोलते हैं equity investing के लिए, वो अगर आपके पास हो, there is no way you can actually stop creating that wealth for yourself. So it is a great time to participate in Indian equity markets. It's a great story to be in, and it's just stay on for the ride. It's a roller coaster. Stay on for the ride. Most roller coasters are a lot of fun, right? So that is what the Indian equity markets is.
And fortunately, the Indian roller coaster is not as bad as a lot of other roller coasters if you
Yeah.
other countries. So the trickle effect hasn't, like Dinesh, you were mentioning US, China, but Indian market has still not given negative returns even in the last 3-4 years. But a lot of US stocks and have been down. So that I've
In
personally
fact, if you see China and if you take last 20 years, markets have not done anything.
correct.
Market has not given any return. So though Chinese GDP has grown and it has like outsmarted everyone, but from an investor perspective, whether everybody has made at least basic returns in the market, my answer is no. So from that point of view, our culture, our way of investment, I think government facilitating more investment coming out of businesses is
Hmm.
helping all the entrepreneurs to really become big. And India is land of entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
So enough and more opportunity for wealth creation.
For sure. And in fact, I was also comparing India and S&P ka jo return tha Nifty ka, not adjusting dollar returns. Nifty has beaten S&P in the last 1, 3, 5, 10 years. Agar aap US se bhi compare karo, which was very shocking for me. Matlab isme dollar appreciation I'm not considering, but even from a absolute point of view, India has given much better returns than the US market. So I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot from both of you. And thank you so much for coming on the session and teaching people the importance of long-term investing, staying invested in the market, and analyzing the budget so well. So I'll summarize a few pointers, Dinesh, sir, you can add on if you want. So overall, a positive view on the budget. The government is increasing the infra and capex over the last few years we've seen, and that is a very good thing because long term that will have very good benefits, and that is how we should also look at investing, because if the government is increasing the spend, then that means the overall Indian growth story is very promising. And as you said, that India is the land of entrepreneurs, so we will be creating good businesses with sustainable modes, and that is something that I also personally follow before investing in any company. So budget ke bare mein positive tha, and hopefully even people who are earning less than 7-8 lakhs, if they get the extra money, they will be investing in probably equity. So that will we'll see that in the next few years. And apart from that, a business cycle fund is one new thing that I learned today, that a common man can sort of use the expertise of people who are doing this for so many years. So that is another interesting thing that you guys can focus on. So I think that is it from my side. Thank you so much, Jinesh. Thank you so much, Shane, for coming on the call.
Thank you, team, for
Thank
having
you.
us
Thank
on
you.
this
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
session. It
weekend.
was a lovely session. Thank you. Thank you, Kumar.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Great. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.